welcome to the Noetica Channel, the place where we don't offer ready-made answers, but rather ask the questions that unsettle the mind and awaken consciousness. Here, we don't just analyze technology, but dive into what it does to us. And today, our question is more dangerous than you imagine. Have you ever thought that AI might not just take your job, but strip you your sense of who you are? In a world where the machine writes your thoughts, answers your questions, and perhaps thinks instead of you, a terrifying question begins to emerge. If it can do everything, then what is left for you? Are we facing an evolution? Or a slow disappearance of human meaning? In this video, we won't just answer, but we'll reframe the question from the ground up. Prepare to see yourself in a way you've never seen before. Will AI make humans meaningless? Ever since humans began asking the question, "Who am I?" they linked their answer to what they do, their work, their output, their ability to influence the world. But with the rise of AI, the threat is no longer just directed at jobs, but at this very link between the human and their meaning. The question is no longer just economic, but has become existential. If the machine can do what we do, even that, then does our existence still have meaning? In modern philosophy, especially with the rise of capitalism, human value has been reduced to productivity. A successful person is one who achieves, creates, innovates. This perception, despite its power, is not an eternal truth, but a cultural construct. This is where the danger of AI appears, not because it competes with us, but because it reveals the fragility of this definition. When an algorithm can write a text, or paint a picture, or make complex decisions, it doesn't steal meaning from us, but reveals that we were linking it to something replaceable. Albert Camus sees the world as essentially meaningless, and that humans are the ones who create meaning through consciousness and rebellion. From this perspective, AI does not pose a real threat because it cannot live the absurd. The machine doesn't suffer, doesn't doubt, doesn't search for meaning. It simply executes. So, even if the machine excels in performance, it doesn't negate the human experience that creates meaning. Instead, it might force us to face the truth that meaning was never in what we do, but in our awareness of what we are doing. As for Friedrich Nietzsche, he calls for transcending prevailing values and creating new ones. Artificial intelligence in this context is not a threat, but an opportunity. It's a civilizational shock that forces humans to redefine themselves outside traditional frameworks. If humans are no longer distinguished by their computational intelligence or output, then what sets them apart? Perhaps by their ability to recreate themselves and to constantly transcend themselves. One of the fundamental differences that AI is still unable to overcome is self-awareness. It can simulate, but it doesn't know it's simulating. This raises a profound question. Is meaning linked to consciousness or to action? If it's consciousness, then humans retain a unique position, and if it's action, then AI threatens to displace that uniqueness. But perhaps the question is fundamentally flawed, for meaning is not measured by comparison. The real danger isn't that AI makes us meaningless, but that it reveals we never had a coherent definition of meaning from the start. We've relied on work, achievement, and comparison. And when a machine appeared that excels in these fields, the foundations were shaken. But this upheaval might be necessary. It pushes us towards an internal meaning based on experience and awareness. AI doesn't rob humans of their meaning, but it reposes the question with greater intensity. It doesn't end meaning, but it ends our illusions about it. We might find ourselves facing two choices. Either we define ourselves by what the machine can do and we lose, or we redefine ourselves by what cannot be reduced to an algorithm, awareness, experience, and the ability to create meaning. Perhaps the question isn't, will AI make us meaningless? But are we ready to create meaning that doesn't depend on anything outside ourselves? For a long time, creativity was considered the last refuge of human uniqueness. Art, literature, and music were seen as manifestations of a soul that cannot be copied. But AI has become capable of producing texts, paintings, and compositions that simulate, and sometimes it rivals, human creativity. A crucial question arises here. Is creativity the result or the experience? If the output is the benchmark, the machine might surpass it. But if creativity is what the creator feels during the act of creation, then humans remain in a position that cannot be rivaled. What the machine produces is stagnation, whereas what a human produces is an experience. Artificial intelligence is no longer just a silent tool, it has taken on an interactive role in our lives. We talk to it, we consult it, and we rely on it to make decisions. This shift changes the nature of the relationship. We are no longer facing a tool, but an entity mediating between us and the world. And therein lies the challenge. The more we rely on the machine, the less we directly confront reality. And the further we move from direct experience, the more fragile meaning becomes. Karl Marx spoke of alienation as a state where man is separated from the product of his labour. But today we face a deeper form of alienation, not just from the work, but from the act itself. When the machine writes for us, thinks for us, and decides for us, we begin to lose the sense that we are the agents. And here the question shifts, not to what will we do, but are we the ones doing it? In the face of this transformation, the solution may not be in rejecting artificial intelligence, but in redirecting it. We can treat it as a means to expand our potential, not as a replacement for us. To use it to create, not to hide away. In this context, meaning becomes an act of resistance, resistance to surrender, resistance to reduction, and resistance to giving up our role as agents. Perhaps we are not facing the end of humanity, but its transformation. The human who used to define themselves by work may have to define themselves by consciousness. And the one who sought their value in production may start looking for it in experience. This shift is not easy, but it could be the deepest philosophical opportunity in centuries. Meaning is not something we find in the world, but something we create in our way of living. And as the machine evolves, this creation becomes more difficult and more necessary. If artificial intelligence has disrupted the link between humanity and production, it also opens the door to the collapse of standards we've long relied upon: success, excellence, even value itself. So if a machine can master everything that we master, then how do we measure ourselves? And if we lose our yardsticks, do we lose our meaning, or are we freed from the illusion of measurement altogether? Perhaps the deepest shift isn't in what we do, but in how we value ourselves. In a world where machines perform tasks with high efficiency, it seems that what remains for humanity is presence. Presence isn't a task, but a state, being conscious of what you experience. not just an achiever of what's asked of you. Here, humanity approaches a philosophical horizon posed by Martin Heidegger, where the question shifts from what do we do to how do we be. In this sense, artificial intelligence might be a catalyst for humanity's return to self, not for losing it. However, this shift's outcome isn't guaranteed. But there's a real danger that comfort and excessive delegation to machines lead to a kind of internal void. When there's nothing that compels us to act, we might lose the drive for initiative. And when all the answers are available, we might lose the passion for the question. Here, the danger isn't in the machine, but in our surrender to it. Perhaps what best defines humanity isn't its answers, but its questions. The machine searches for solutions, whereas humanity creates problems. In a world where algorithms provide the best answers, the human role becomes asking the questions that cannot be reduced. And here, a new dimension of meaning appears, not in arriving, but in searching. For centuries, humanity defined itself through comparison. Better than others, faster, smarter, more productive. But artificial intelligence ends this game, for it's capable of excelling in many of these fields. So what remains? It remains for us to redefine ourselves beyond comparison. To be, not because we're better, but because we are us. Artificial intelligence isn't the end of meaning, but the end of an old way of understanding it. It strips us of our illusions that we're important because we produce, or because we excel, or because we are irreplaceable. And it leaves us facing a truth that is both simpler and more difficult. That meaning's not given, but created. In this new world, the question is no longer, what can I do better than the machine? But rather, how can I live a meaningful life even if I am not the best at anything? And perhaps here, for the first time, man begins to truly understand himself. Perhaps the most profound revelation of the era of artificial intelligence is that meaning isn't something we search for in the world, but something we take responsibility for. We can no longer pin the meaning of our lives on a job, a role, or society, as these have all become reshapeable or replaceable by the machine. And here the question shifts, what's the meaning of my life? What will I make the meaning of my life? In a world where algorithms make decisions, a new ethical challenge emerges. Who bears the responsibility? If the machine decides, is it still we who have chosen? And if it makes a mistake, who is held accountable? Here, man remembers that technical progress doesn't eliminate the need for ethics. It multiplies it, and perhaps what distinguishes us isn't the ability to think, but the capacity to endure, to bear the consequences of our actions. As life becomes easier thanks to artificial intelligence, a strange paradox emerges. Do we become more free or less? If the machine suggests what we read, what we watch, and even what we decide, are we truly choosing to follow a precisely suggested path? Freedom here doesn't mean the absence of constraints, but the ability to resist hidden guidance. To say no to what seems to be the best because it isn't your choice. In a world promising comfort and quick solutions, anxiety might seem like something to be discarded. But anxiety is one of our deepest sources. Soren Kierkegaard saw anxiety as the dizziness of freedom, a feeling that arises when we realize we are capable of choice. If the machine removes this anxiety by providing ready-made answers, it might lighten the burden, but it might cost us a part of our humanity. Perhaps the greatest illusion is that meaning is some grand thing we find just once. In truth, meaning is built in the small details, in a sincere word, in a conscious choice, in a moment of true presence. And in a world where machines perform the major tasks, this kind of meaning might be the most authentic. Artificial intelligence is neither man's enemy nor his saviour. It is a mirror revealing what we have been avoiding, the fragility of our definition, our reliance on the external, and our fear of facing ourselves. But at the same time, it opens a door to a more conscious human, more free, and more responsible. In the end, the question is not, what will artificial intelligence do to us? But what will we do with ourselves in a world that no longer forces us to be something specific? Peace be upon you, and the mercy and blessings of God.